Welcome to the EKG Guy. If this is your first time, I'm glad you're joining us, and welcome back if you're returning. So we've been going through our EKG coding reference guide that's now available online. And if you need access, all you have to do is put this link into your search bar, enter your email, click submit, and then you'll get an email. And on that email, there will be a link within it. And you'll have to be able to click, and you'll come to this coding reference guide. So where we are is we are in part 4. We are looking at right ventricular hypertrophy today. Okay, this is a good one to know and can often be confused with a posterior infarct. So we want to be able to differentiate those two. We've gone through the general features in part 1, looking at normal EKGs, atrial abnormalities. We looked at rhythms, different types, in part 2, sinus, atrial, junctional, and ventricular. And then we looked in part 3 at some different conduction blocks. All right, all the AV conduction blocks, first, second degree, Mobitz 1, 2, and third degree are complete. And we've gone through a bunch of things here in part 4, and now we'll look at right ventricular hypertrophy. Okay, so this is one that I think you'll find very helpful. It's sometimes hard to identify EKGs like this, and we recently just had one that I'll have to show in another lecture. That was quite interesting. So now the other thing is, if you need access to our course or our books, you can go to www.ekg.md. Okay, we have a number of offers going on now. You can go to the EKG course there and look at our videos and books and everything there. Now remember, all that stuff there is separate from the hundreds of videos that you see online. That's a separate course that we use when we teach our students, and you're welcome to now have access and a chance to go through it yourself. All right, so let's get started. So right ventricular hypertrophy. So what does that mean? Okay, so remember, the right ventricle is the most anterior portion of the heart. When we use our box diagrams in two-dimensional that are certainly not anatomically correct, this is the right atrium, right ventricle, this is left atrium, right ventricle, and left ventricle. Okay, so we're saying this is the most anterior portion, and thickening of this could cause hypertrophy. So what can cause it? Any sort of back pressure, right? We know that the pulmonary artery comes from here, so if there's any pulmonary valve stenosis, okay, affecting blood flow where there's a back pressure, if there's an overload of that right ventricle, okay, from maybe the tricuspid insufficiency, so a tricuspid valve sits there between the right atrium and right ventricle. If there is maybe a big embolus, okay, so if someone, remember, the pulmonary artery go to the lungs, okay, so if there's a big embolus, maybe a saddle embolus, all this pressure on the back, on the right ventricle, can cause a strain pattern, okay. Also, someone with lung disease, COPD, can eventually cause that, all right, and those are tend to be the things that we tend to see, okay. So again, right ventricular hypertrophy, just thickening of that right ventricle muscle. So what do we see on the EKG? Well, as you would expect, because the right ventricle is getting bigger and stronger and having to act more, we're going to see stronger impulses coming from the right side. Remember, our right precordial leads tend to be V1 and V2. Okay, so we're going to see stronger forces there. The other thing we may also see is, because of that, right axis deviation. So a right axis deviation is one of our first clues. The other clue, and so we actually see in this EKG right axis deviation. So let's go over that quickly. So right axis deviation, if you recall from our lectures, remember, this would be normal axis between -30 and +110. Okay, so this is normal axis. This is right axis deviation here. This is left axis deviation, and this is that northwest axis, or right superior axis, or no man's land, okay? Not much we see there other than maybe VT and some other rhythms, okay? So the one thing we want to look here for is, where are the leads that we have to focus on? Lead 1 is here, lead AVF is here, okay? Remember that this is 0 degrees, this is positive 90 degrees, this is plus or minus 180 degrees, and this is negative 90 degrees. So if you look at lead 1, its positive end in AVF, let's take a look at them here. So lead 1 is this. If you were to draw a line at the isoelectric or baseline, you could see that it is mostly negative, okay? Still mostly negative, going away from lead 1, okay? And then if you look at AVF, AVFs, QRS complexes, are mostly positive, putting us in this region here. Another clue is this: if you know that lead 3 sits here, okay, and notice that these complexes in lead 3 appear to be slightly more positive going towards that lead, okay, and the axis in this that the machine gave us was about positive 120 degrees, okay. So anyways, hopefully that is helpful. So we have right axis deviation here. And if you want more practice on learning how to do axis deviation, make sure you go back and listen to our lectures on axis deviation. We go through it in much more detail. So right axis deviation is certainly one of the first clues you can note. Okay. The other thing you should note is in V1, okay, those right precordial leads that I mentioned, the R to S ratio is greater than 1. So what does that mean? Well, if we draw a complex here, notice this is an R wave. So let's just draw that again. That's not good. So here's an R wave, here's an S wave, okay? And then let's draw another one. Here's an R wave, and here's an S wave. And when we talk about the R to S ratio, if you look at this first one, you would see that the R is less than the S wave, okay? So we would say that's less than 1. All right, and you give that some values. Imagine that the R is 1, okay, and imagine that the S wave is 3 millimeters deep. So 1 over 3 is certainly less than 1. Okay, when we look at this one, the criteria is R to S is greater than 1 because you have greater rightward forces. The R, we can say in this case, is maybe 4, and the S is 2. Okay, so in this case, the R over S is greater than 1. Okay, so for putting numbers in, 4 over 2 is greater than 1, right? That's 2. So hopefully that makes sense. So the R to S ratio is greater than 1. You could also have a QR complex in which the R wave is greater than 7. Okay, so what does that mean? So sometimes you can have complex like that, where this is your Q wave and this is your R wave. So still very strong rightward forces, but this R wave here is greater than 7 millimeters in amplitude. Okay, so 7 of those small boxes there. We don't see that one here, but we certainly see that the R wave to the S wave is greater than, so the R to S is greater than 1 here in V1. Okay. So hopefully that makes sense. Now how about in V6? So pretty much the opposite precordial leads, V5 or V6, you're almost seeing the opposite, in which the R to S ratio is less than 1. Okay, and it almost looks isoelectric in these leads. Okay, and the same in here. Okay, so it's almost close to 1 there. I wouldn't say it's clearly less than 1, but that's something that you can see because the rightward forces are really dominating. Okay, you can see these anterior forces pretty much taking over most of the heart, and a lot of stronger forces on the right side. Okay, so it really is clinical context. It's not simply just the EKG. You have to always keep clinical context in mind. Why is the patient presenting, and so forth. Okay, the other thing you have to note is that there can be sometimes secondary ST segment changes, okay, in which you may have, let's just draw this here. Let's draw a complex in lead V1. Okay, so we'll draw a complex in V1, and we're saying that the R wave is greater than the S wave. Okay, but sometimes you may also have something like this. Okay, and notice that you have the R wave, and then you have a little ST depression. Imagine we also have an S wave there. So here's your R wave, here's your S wave, but then you also have depression and an inverted T wave. You have to be careful when calling this right ventricular hypertrophy versus a posterior infarct, okay? Because you can certainly confuse those. And it has to do, how we differentiate it is based on a few things. First, clinical context, okay? If the patient is having chest pain, it's most likely an infarct. Well, it could be a rightward strain from maybe a PE, but that's one thing to keep in mind. But a few things. So the QRS complex, if it's narrow or normal, that tends to suggest less against an MI, but it can happen. If this ST segment morphology, so there's certain types that we tend to see more in MIs, so that's something that we can keep in mind, and we'll look at that. We do that in detail in our lecture of the ST segment. So the QRS duration, the ST segment morphology is another one, okay? The patient's presentation, obviously, the rightward axis, if you have right axis deviation, okay, that tends to, so factors that favor RVH are the right axis deviation and the T wave inversion in V1 and V2, although be careful if you see the ST segment depression. Things that would favor more of a posterior infarct would be the inferior Q waves, or Q waves in those inferior leads, okay? Here we don't really see Q waves because we have R waves and then S waves in these complexes here, okay? Small R wave and then S wave, and then you can see little R waves there, okay? So hopefully that makes sense. So the main things you want to remember with right ventricular hypertrophy is if you notice that there's a right axis deviation and then you look at these right precordial leads and then you see the R to S ratio greater than 1, okay? Then you may look at the left lateral precordial leads and see pretty much the opposite, in which, so V1, let's just erase this so it's clear, okay? So a few key take-home points that if you're noticing this, okay, as you're going through the EKG. All right, so right ventricular hypertrophy. 1, right axis deviation, okay, an axis greater than positive 110 degrees. 2, look at V1. Is the R to S ratio greater than 1, or do you have a QR complex with an R wave greater than 7 millimeters, okay? 3, look at the left precordial leads, those left lateral ones, and do you have in V5 or V6 an R to S ratio less than 1, okay? Again, because you have a lot of these strong rightward forces causing that, okay? And then obviously you can look at the ST segment changes. Make sure you also differentiate this from that posterior infarct, which may also present with similar findings, okay? Remember, those V1 and V2, where we tend to see Q waves in maybe a septal infarct, in the opposite reciprocal changes in the posterior leads, we would now see these big R waves, okay? So these are R waves or Q waves in a posterior infarct, so you don't want to confuse those. Okay, so maybe a little more than needed, but hopefully that was helpful. If you're interested in more of axis deviation or more detail on how we look at these ST segment changes and the Q waves and so forth, make sure to check out our course, okay, for more detail. Well, that's the end of this lecture. I hope you learned something. Now, just to keep you in mind of our course material that we have available, so again, if you go to our website, www.ekg.md, okay, so this is our website, and what you'll notice is that if you go to the EKG course here, okay, you'll find stuff that's separate. So notice that we have a number of topics, practice material, lectures, a way for you to contribute, and this is the course here over here. So you'll notice we have over 300 videos or so, and that's more on YouTube. There's another 100, more than 100, about 200 videos that are available with the course. So those are separate videos, and this course is really designed to take you from a beginner to advanced interpreter. Okay, so completely separate from what you're getting online for free. Okay, these are course material that comes with it. So notice that you have a book. Okay, and then you also have the pocket guide available, so you can choose which format. They are the same thing, both these book and the pocket guide, different formats. I really like this small one because you can keep it in your white coat if you're in the clinic or in your pocket, and it's really available on the go. Now with the book, you also get videos. So notice these are the videos, okay? And these are a video for every single page in that book. So it's over 30 hours of video. Now there's a number of practice material that I continue to upload there. Okay, we'll have practice questions coming soon. So all of that's available. Again, this is separate from all the free material that you get already. Okay, so this is more high yield stuff. This is what we used to teach our technicians here and our students here at Mayo Clinic. and it's used now among many institutions. So check that out. Now, what it also includes are calipers. So yes, you get calipers with this course. Okay. I don't know anyone else that offers that, but you do get calipers. I think they're very helpful, and they can, if you know how to use them correctly, can help to identify different arrhythmias that are going on. Okay, and then you also get our pocket EKG reference. Okay, this was something we've put together as we were developing course for the fellows, and this is really nice. It has every code, as you saw earlier, laid out there. Very small pocket guide available. I had help with my colleague, Dr. Peter Noseworthy, who's the head of the EKG lab here at Mayo Clinic, in editing it. So this is something that we use, and we've found very helpful. So go to the EKG course. You'll see examples of lectures, okay, why we developed this, okay. A lot of it came about from myself struggling with learning EKGs, having a father that was an interventional cardiologist, and, still struggling. So my struggle is a struggle that I don't want you to have in learning them, okay. You can read all those introductory books, but honestly, they are not enough, okay, and you find yourself using other resources, which is part of the learning process. I wanted to expedite that process for you and make it less inefficient in pretty much what I struggled with going and learning through EKG. So again, from beginner to advanced level with this course, you get the book, the calipers, the coding reference, video access, okay, and now we're offering 25% off. 25% off. Put that code in on checkout, and you'll have yourself 25% off. That will it's pretty much covers the cost of what we use to print the material. So we don't really make much off it. It's more to help our learners grow and really be able to contribute to patient care. That's why we do this, and we love doing it. So thank you so much for your support. If you have any questions, just leave them below, and we're happy to answer them. All right. Have a great day.